Hello, friends. Welcome back. I couldn't stay away too long because this book is getting so good and I want to know how it ends. So, we last left Sugar. She had painted a room with Lexi, a bright tangerine orange. Can only imagine how pretty it is. And Reba thinks that she's doing well enough to take Sugar back into her possession, but Sugar and Lexi aren't so sure yet. So let's see what happens next. All right. So excited. Chapter 34. The news at Junie's house is complicated. The police found Junie's dad living in Arizona. He told them he didn't have any money to pay all those years back of child support, but he was living in a nice house with his new wife and little son. He got arrested and put in jail, Junie tells me. So I guess somewhere out there, I have another brother. I gulp. It's good they found him. I guess. Helen's glad. She rubs Shush. He's been married 5 times now. That's a lot. Yeah. Dante sits on the steps. We don't quite know where my uncle is. I can relate. Mr. Leland is somewhere out there too. We could start a Somewhere Out There club, Junie suggests. And for some reason, I tell them about the fight I overheard when I was in 3rd grade. Mr. Leland was yelling at Reba that he wasn't ready to be a father, and when I came along, he couldn't handle the responsibility. He was screaming at her, "You should have been careful. What's the matter with you?" Like he didn't have anything to do with it. I changed their whole marriage. Shush sighs and leans against my leg. Sometimes it feels like I ruined everything. Junie shakes her head. That's not true. King Cole said when I told him about that's what King Cole said when I told him about it. Really not true, Dante adds. Write that down, Sugar. I'm not kidding. It's cool to have friends who help you figure out your life. Chandler comes out on the porch in his pajamas. Are we going to see Daddy? Junie puts her arm around him. I don't know. Do you want to? Chandler thinks about that. If we saw him, how would it be? Junie shakes her head. I don't know. She looks at me and Dante. Help me out, guys. Dante clears his throat. It would probably be a combination of being glad to see him because he's your dad and feeling a little uncomfortable because he hasn't been around and helping. Chandler nods and scratches his knee. Maybe the dragon with 47 daggers could fly us over there. Maybe, Junie says. Shush jumps over Dante's legs and heads right to Chandler. He sits in front of him and wags his tail. Chandler laughs and then he hugs him for a long time. That's when a silver car drives up the street and a hand waves from the window. My heart catches in my throat as Mr. Leland gets out holding a big teddy bear and a box of chocolates, looking handsome like a movie star. Well, Miss Sugar, aren't you a sight for sore eyes? I don't say anything. I can't say anything. Mr. Leland walks right up to the porch. Well, I've had better greetings. I'll tell you what. What do you want from me? I want to run, but it's like my legs have turned to stone. Who's that? Chandler asked me. I looked down. This is Mr. Leland, my father. Dante gets up and stretches out his hand. How do you do, sir? Mr. Leland shakes it. About as well as I can. Mr. Leland sits down in Mac's special chair like it belongs to him. Reba said she'd meet me here. We're looking at apartments together. She didn't tell me that. He smiles. Our little surprise. Lexi brings coffee. Shush trots in and stops. Well, hey there, little guy. Mr. Leland puts his hand out, but Shush backs off. My father throws a bag to me and I catch it. I didn't know what to get you, but I remember your mother teaching you about the fine art of gratitude. Shush sniffs the bag. I open it to a box of cards with sunflowers on them and the words, thank you, written in gold. I remember the sunflowers you grew, he adds. All right, this is a pretty good gift, but I'm not getting sucked in. They're probably dead now. Or they've shot up to the sky, he says. There's a gold pen in there, too. I find Matt in the bag. Mac is standing in the doorway now. Mr. Leland looks at everybody. Could I talk to my daughter alone? No, Mac and Lexi say together. He laughs nervously. All right, then. Sugar, honey, your mother called me and told me what happened. I got here as soon as I could. He looks at his tan hands. I want to help. She needs to keep getting stronger, I tell him. And how about you, Sugar? What do you need? I look at Lexi, Mac, and Shush. I need a real house and a normal family. I don't need anything, I tell him as Shush licks my cheek. I know I have to prove to you and your mother that things can be different. I sit there not talking. You know, he says, there were good times. I remember that week in 4th grade when he picked me up from school and took me to a poker game in Boyd Marsh's basement. I had to sit by the boiler waiting for him to lose so I could go home. I had to tell my teacher the next day I didn't get my homework done, Mrs. Powell, because my father bet a straight and lost to 3 aces. I've taken a room in town, he says. Me too. Mine's pink. That's when Reba shows up. Mac leads her into the living room. Her face breaks into joy. It isn't! Mr. Leland chuckles and shouts, oh, yes, it is! She runs into his arms and they have the kind of kiss that makes everyone in the room uncomfortable. Lexi stands by me and puts her strong hand on my shoulder. You keep your hand on me, okay? Because I'm going to need it. When they're done kissing, Reba pulls me away from Lexi. We're your family, miss, and don't you forget that. Chapter 35. He came and he went, my father did. But then he came back. He came with promises, and Reba believed everyone. Now we're going to be a real family. Starting now, things are going to change. He came to Lexi's without calling and brought donuts. I didn't want to see him. I didn't have to. But Lexi said she'd be there with me since that was the law. Mr. Leland and I sit in the kitchen and eat donuts. Lexi is there too. That's the law of the state of Illinois, supervised visits. Illinois has some good laws. Sugar, you don't like me much, do you? He asks. How does a kid answer that? I don't know you much. Well, that's true. How come you didn't try and help us when we lost the house? I tried to get there. I was detained. It killed me not to come. His voice sounds like he means every word. His eyes fill with love. I look at him, really look at him, and his blonde hair, his black eyes, his white tooth smile, and his blue shirt. His sleeves are rolled up, and his wedding ring on his hand, and his jeans and cowboy boots. And I just get sick of being lied to. No, sir, I don't think you did. I stand up. I think you like making promises so people will like you, but you don't know how to keep them much. Now, just a minute, young lady. I shout, no, sir, I haven't got a minute. I'm full out tired of this attitude. You hear me? Every day I'm looking how to win best for me and our family. You're a loser, and you brought us down with you until you had to leave everything we love. Lexi is standing now. I look at her and she shoots me into courage. I don't want to talk anymore, I say. Mr. Leland pushes back his chair in disgust. This isn't much of a system. I'm trying to get to know my daughter, and I feel like I've got a crowd around me. I understand, Lexi tells him, but it's the way the system works. For now, he leaves without saying goodbye. I wanted him to leave, and it hurt me when he did. I stand there crying. Shush runs up, and I hold him close. I don't know what's the matter with me. Mac walks in and heads to the refrigerator. Well, that man is your father, Sugar, and there's love inside you for him, no matter how you feel. I don't want there to be any of that. He doesn't deserve any of that. Under the circumstances, I think you're doing pretty darn well. This isn't easy. He opens the refrigerator and gets out 2 root beers. He gives one to me. I'd forgotten how creamy a root beer tastes. He sits down at the table, and I do too. We had a drummer who played for us about 2 years ago, Mac begins. He was always late for practice. Sometimes he didn't even show. He was a friend of mine, so I let it go. He was always going around town wearing his Fresh River jacket, telling everyone what a great band we were and how much he loved being a part of it. He wasn't fully part of it, and it hurt everybody. We knew what commitment really looked like, and this guy didn't. What did you do? At first, we let it almost destroy the band, and then we fired him. Is he telling me to fire my father? He guzzles his root beer. What I'm trying to say is it's all right to feel the way you're feeling. If you weren't upset, I'd be worried about you. Your dad, for whatever reason, hasn't really shown you he can be trusted. So why would you trust him? Maybe I should be taking notes. I would hope, Max says, you wouldn't trust him until you had some decent proof he has changed. From what I can see, your dad loves you. I don't think he loves himself too much. I think he likes easy solutions and himself way too much. He might never change, but he loves you. I would go to the mat on that one. Shush sniffs the air and leans his head against my chest. I needed that. I rub his good, soft fur. I don't usually talk this much, Max says, but you're such a fine girl. You listen to me. You've had your share of adults acting badly, but don't give up on all of us. It's safe here. Do you read me? I read you. I look down. I'm glad you still have the band. Lexi smiles. We stopped playing for a year, but we were miserable without our music. We're just starting back up again. There's a knock at the door. I'm not getting it. Hey, it's Dante's voice. You want to show me where you want that little tree? Are you guys going to help or watch me work? Watch, Junie says. Dante takes a big bag of dirt and lugs it into the trash. Then he lifts a baby tree out of the back of a truck and starts digging a hole. How did you learn so much about plants? I ask him. Mac taught me. This little tree here, it can survive on its own. The wind will knock it down. So we've got to give it support to grow while it's young. We need to make this part of parent education on Zitto, Junie says. Dante laughs and puts 2 posts in the ground, one on either side of the hole. He puts water in the hole and special tree food. Then he puts the baby tree in so gently. He fills the hole up, pats it down, and uses wire to connect the little tree to the post. This way it should make it through the winter, he says. I'm thinking the posts in my life are Mac and Lexi. You're in a good place, Dante tells me. He clips some yellow flowers, hands them to me, and digs another hole. Junie says. Shush is sniffing the flowers. I've never had a guy give me flowers. I look at Junie and mouth. What should I do? She leans over. Say thank you and put them in water. Chapter 36. I need those strong posts to hold me up. The wind here is blowing hard. It feels like winter is coming in the middle of August. Mr. Leland and Reba are looking for an apartment. He keeps saying, we're going to be a real family. I tell him, no, sir, the state of Illinois wants me here. Well, he says, we'll see about that nonsense. I've got me a lawyer who's going to rattle some cages. I run upstairs to the pink room and lock the door. I shove a chair in front of it. I'm not leaving this place. I get out my pen and I start writing. Dear State of Illinois, I want to thank you for having rules that protect children, and I hope you're super serious about making sure they work. I didn't like that group home I got stuck in when I first came into town, but it was sure better than being on the street, so I am grateful. I just want you to know that if my father, Mr. Robert E. Leland, has his lawyer show up and tells you that he wants me to start living with him, you have my permission to start laughing and say, suck eggs, or whatever you think might be appropriate. Just so you know, I'm not leaving the place where you put me because on the second try, you got it right. Keep up the good work. I'm counting on you. Yours very truly, Sugar McCole. 5 days after Mr. Leland showed up in Chicago, he left. Left Reba with all her big dreams of being loved. In Cinderella, she says, the prince doesn't leave town. I guess I keep wanting the fairy tale. I never liked that story much. I never trusted that prince. I take her by the hand. Come on, there's a place that I've been wanting to take you. The sun is shining through the windows, and it seems like the sweetest place on earth. Mildred is complaining about her throbbing veins, but that doesn't matter. Reba looks at the candy and the people and sits down, grinning. I knew she would love it. I buy her 2 kinds of chocolates and a coffee with steamed milk. I bring them over to the table as Reba studies the place. They could do so much more in this room, you know. I put the coffee down. Like what? Potted plants, tablecloths, she points outside, and they could use that porch. She leans back in her chair. I'd paint that wall rose and the other wall yellow. She takes a bite of the chocolate and grins. But I wouldn't change this, not one whit. It didn't make sense, and I didn't think she'd have the courage to do it. But 2 days later, Reba walked into the sweet spot with her makeup just so and her pink shirt and white pants and told Sharon, the owner, I believe in the power of sweetness, and I would love to work here. She came back grinning, and I knew she got the job. They can do a lot more with sweetness, in my opinion, Reba says. And I only gave them a few pointers to get started. Like, please, for heaven's sakes, use that porch you have for customers. People will talk about things on a porch they'd never discuss inside. It just opens you up. I told her you should have hanging pots with flowers everywhere, and you should have those walls painted with fresh color. Great ideas. Helen passes the salad to me. We are sitting at Junie's kitchen table having pizza and salad to celebrate Reba's new job. It was Helen's idea. And then, of course, there's Mildred, Reba sighs. She is a tired old soul. She's mean, Chandler says. She is, Reba agrees. But there's always a reason for that. You just don't know another person's miseries. And Reba is telling how Mildred looked her up and down like I was something the cat dragged in, but I didn't take it personally. I just smiled at her. And when she told me about her daughter-in-law, well, I told her, you're lucky to have a hard-working woman like that as a role model. Helen laughs. What did Mildred say? Reba's chuckling. Well, she was stunned to silence. It feels so good sitting in this little kitchen at the lime green table eating pizza and soggy salad. Shush and Butterbutt are at opposite ends of the room staring at each other. We help clean up, then Reba, who normally stays up much later than she should, says, I've got a mighty big day tomorrow. I best be going. Shush and I walk Reba to the bus stop. She has to take 2 buses to get back to the shelter. Shush stops every few feet because of the street noise. Reba bends down and rubs him under the chin. You just keep taking steps forward, little one. Shush walks forward a little. I take her hand. I want to encourage her. I'm proud of you, Reba. She gives me the longest hug. We are almost home, Sugar Make-Hole. I'm not sure about that, but I keep my mouth shut. I've still got lots to work on, Reba says as the bus pulls up. Shush is shaking from the noise. Reba turns to me. Her eyes look sad. Do you like it at Lexi's? She shakes her head. I already know the answer. She climbs on the bus, and Shush and I watch it go. Almost. It's a big word for me. I feel it everywhere. Almost home. Almost happy. Almost changed. Almost, but not quite. Not yet. Soon, maybe. I'm hoping hard for that. Chapter 37. The phone at Lexi rings. It's 8:25 a.m. I hear her say, well, no, she's not. No, she doesn't live here. Just a minute, Sharon. I'll ask her daughter. I run into the kitchen. Sugar, did your mom know she was supposed to be at work at 7:30? She knew, I whisper. Lexi's back on the phone. She's just delayed, Sharon. She doesn't have a phone. Yes, I know. I'm sorry. Of course I will. She hangs up. Now I'm calling the shelter and we're getting to the bottom of this. Reba doesn't get up that well sometimes. Or she didn't make it back. Nobody is answering the phone at the shelter. My mind is going crazy. Maybe something happened, I say. Lexi shakes her head. I'll try again. I pick up Shush and go into the tangerine room. I bury my face in his good fur. I'm getting a stomach ache from worry. I look at the dollhouse. The mother doll is in the kitchen. It's so perfect, it's irritating. It's her first day of work. Couldn't we just get a break on her first day? I take the father doll and I throw him across the room. Then I see Lexi standing in the doorway. I run to get the father doll. I'm sorry, I don't know why I've thought of doing that myself, she tells me. I gulp. Did you talk to the shelter? Something is wrong with their phone. I can't get through. I feel this fear sitting on my chest. Something bad has happened to Reba. I know. Just then, Shush starts going crazy, running around the room. He jumps up at the window, whining. What is it, boy? He's pawing at the window. Do you have to go? You have to go out back. You know that. Come on. But Shush won't move. I try to pick him up, but he jumps away. What's with you? He's whining louder. I pick Shush up and take him out back, but he won't go in the backyard. He runs to the kitchen, to the front door. And now he does something he's never done before. He barked. I'm not kidding. Shush barks again. What is it? I shout. Lexi throws the front door open, and there is Reba sitting on the porch with her face in her hands. Shush runs to her barking. She touches his chin. Are you barking for me? What happened? I shout. Reba shakes her head. The bus was late. Then the next bus broke down, and I asked a woman if I could use her phone, and she said no. I didn't have change to make a phone call, and I walked here in these shoes. She takes them off. She's got bleeding blisters all over her feet. Oh, Reba, I tried to get there. Lexi bends down. Yes, you did. I'm calling Sharon right now. The whole world has a phone, Reba whispers, except me. Lots of people don't have phones, honey. Lexi puts her hand on Reba's shoulder. Don't let this bad morning stop you. You have got so much to build on. Reba grabs Lexi's hand. I don't deserve your kindness. I look at Reba and she looks at me. I sit down next to her. Lexi's saying she's going to call Sharon, but I don't think she should do that. Reba should call for herself. I take Reba's hand. Do you remember that time I came home from school crying because I didn't get into the school play? I remember. Do you remember what you told me? She touches the little silver bell necklace, and it's like she got some power from it. She sits up straight and goes all out Southern. Why, yes, I do. I told you not to worry about one bad audition, but ask for another one. And then I got the role of lead armadillo. I was so proud of you on that stage. Lord, I was bursting. She smiles brave like only a Southern woman can. Let me tell you about my mother. She gets kicked around a lot, but she gets up too. She's King Cole's daughter, and that's close to being royalty. Well, she says to Shush, if you can bark, I can too. She straightens her shoulders and gets herself up. She calls Sharon and asks for another chance. She slaps bandages on her blisters. She brushes herself off and marches off to the sweet spot. Actually, she's limping, so Helen drives her. Shush and I stay back in the kitchen. You barked, I mentioned to him. You sounded totally ferocious. Am I going to have to change your name? Shush looks at me. I guess you've been holding it in for a long time, huh? Shush puts his paw on my arm and sighs. I've got a big question to ask you, Dana. Dana Wood sits back in her brown, ugly chair and smiles like she's used to big questions. Do you think Reba is going to get better? She doesn't look down or take a sip of coffee to think of any of that. She looks at me straight on. I think your mother loves you very... That's not what I asked. She holds up her hand. Let me finish. That kind of love can be transforming. Do you understand? It can help change her. That's right. And she wants to change real bad. And that can be a key that unlocks a door. I understand about locked up things. I've got another big question. What if Mr. Leland comes back? When people want to make big changes in their lives, they need to understand what's healthy for them and what isn't. You're talking to Reba about this, right? Dana Wood smiles. I can't tell you what I talk about, sugar. That's confidential. But you're covering the big change stuff, right? I mean, you're not missing any major life points because sometimes with Reba, you've got to really ram it home for her to get it. Dana Wood leans back in her chair. I'm going to ask you, sugar, do you trust me on this? Trust isn't a natural gift I've got. Excuse me. I trust you. I mean, I think I do. I want to, but I'm not sure I can. Inside my heart, I wonder if I can really trust anyone. I trust you. Sort of. Maybe I don't know you well enough to trust you. Maybe I shouldn't even try, but I will. Try, that is. At least I think I will. When I was little, I thought trust was just a word, but it's more than that. It's a promise. Do you promise I can trust you? If you do, then maybe I can. I promise I will try. Ooh, boys, I know. All right, I'm going to stop here. We have 5 more chapters, so I will be making one more video to finish this book. I'm so excited to see how it ends and who Sugar ends up with. Does she stay with Lexi and Mark? Does Reba get better? Oh my goodness, I'm on the edge of my seat. Stay tuned. Bye-bye.